I totally agree, Angus. It's actually shaping up to be a really strong edition of this race, don't you think?
And a really unusual one. Again, when's the last time we had a proper soft ground, whip bed stroke Bet365? I mean, it's been a while, hasn't it? And you're used to seeing horses rattling up here. So very different. And because of that, different sort of runner. We've got a Welsh national runner running in it, and favourite for the race. And that in itself is unusual.
It is. Leau B, of course, is the horse that Steve is talking about. Let's see him in action. We can show you him finishing third at Haydock. Certainly connections of this horse will be very, very thankful that the heavens have opened and the rain has come.
They walked Aintree about 3 or 4 days beforehand, didn't they? I think the trainer's daughter walked Aintree and decided the ground just didn't have enough juice in it, so they pulled him out of the National, and they must have been tempted to run him because he's such a dour stayer, but they want soft ground for him to show his best. He had it in the Welsh National when he won, he had it here when he's run so well. He's a very, very genuine horse.
He's so likeable, isn't he?
I really like him. He's a real tough horse, and if it becomes a proper slog with a strongly run race, that's all in his favour. 3 mile 5, if they're really finishing strung out and tired here, you'd imagine would suit him ideally.
And the jumping test?
Different, isn't it? It is a different test than I associate him with.
Yes.
I think he's a horse who likes to get into a rhythm. That would be my biggest worry, particularly on the first circuit. He's going over the railway fence. He's just making sure he times and he's a good jumper, but he's not so much a quick jumper as a. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, so many of his finest hours have come on a very different kind of track, and those 3 quick railway fences. I just wonder about those. I'm not necessarily saying he won't handle them. It's just something that would be in the back of the mind if I was thinking about backing him.
Well, I agree with that completely. That's my concern. But the ground, as I say, the ground would be in his favour, and I think a lot. If he's bang there with a circuit to run, having got over them for the first time, then he's a major player.
OK, let's take a look at Galaxy Rock. He was the winner at Cheltenham back in November, you'll remember, and that was a really good performance, and he looked like he was going to make a real impact in staying chases, and that hasn't really been the case this season.
No, he ran all right for quite a long way in the Scottish National last week, but eventually dropped away. I would worry about the ground for him. I know it was good to soft his day, but it's going to be a degree softer tomorrow. I think he likes reasonable ground, ideally, and it's only 7 days ago that he had the exertions of a Scottish National, so pass with me.
Yes, absolutely. It's quite an ask, isn't it? I mean, it depends on the horse. I mean, clearly John O'Neill feels that Galaxy Rock has come out of the race, perfectly well. So, but even so, 2 marathon tests within a week of each other.
It has happened. I mean, Hotwell did it a few years ago. I remember Ferdy Murphy's. I think it was.
Yes,
I think there'd been another one as well. So you can, as you say, I think you can generalise about horses too much. Some horses thrive on running regularly. This horse has had his races spaced out to a degree, though. So I'm not sure necessarily. I think the Scottish National was probably the target, and they're running here again. That would be my guess.
OK. Let's have a look at Major Malarkey, and we can show you him finishing 4th at Warwick. What do you think of his jumping? Is it going to be suited to Sandown?
No, that's all right, because he's got a lot of other things in his favour. He ran really well last time out when runner-up. I think a real test is absolutely what he wanted for 3 mile 5. I mean, Warwick has similarities to Sandown in that the fence is, I know it's right-handed, but it's left-handed, but the fences come up quite quickly down the far side. But I'm not sure that was a good thing for him. I don't think he does. I think it's when he starts galloping is when he's at his best. So yes, he's in my category as being the course may not be ideal.
Yes, absolutely. Again, lots of things to like. The 3 miles, 5.5 furlongs, even the testing ground, good. But again, the railway fences, mainly because of that run at Warwick.
Yeah,
what I learned from the 5 quick fences.
No, absolutely. And in form is another tick for him. I mean, he did run well last time out, but that's your concern about whether it'll be ideal. The track will ideally suit him. OK.
West End Rocker was one of the early departed in the Grand National. Let's show you him winning the Beecher in December. He had Rare Bob behind him in 5th, and Rare Bob, of course, got further than him in the National itself.
He did. He felt the second, didn't he, West End Rocker? But the claims everyone was making about West End Rocker going into the National apply now. He is normally a very good jumper. I know he fell last time out, but he basically jumped around here before. He jumped beautifully at Warwick when he won at Warwick earlier in the season. He got a very good record there, in fact, so Sandown, you'd imagine for him, would be absolutely fine. He wouldn't have taken much out of himself falling so early. I find he's my fancy for the race, really. I think he's got a lot of things with his rein in his favour, and clearly he was trained for the National, kept fresh for that, so you'd imagine he'd still be a pretty fresh horse.
OK, I was quite keen on Rare Bob running well in the National itself, but for reasons that he's not going to get here at Sandown. I think he particularly likes that flat track at Liverpool, and also I think he likes a sounder surface, and here we are with a heavy surface, and I think that's going to tell against him.
I think he likes decent ground. The Beecher that day, he was very tired at the end, wasn't he? And on that form, he's got it all to find with West End Rocker.
A soft surface, I should say, for the jumping course, but the point remains that I think that Rare Bob is best on a sand surface. Let's take a look at Tidal Bay. We can see him run second at Cheltenham this year, the race in which he had any currency further behind him. What do you think Tidal Bay will make of Sandown this time around? He's been here before.
I think he'll make of it what he makes of most courses. I think it'll be beneath him. I do think probably bar me, but it's the first time I can remember going into a race thinking he's got a really good chance over this. I do. I think one thing that surprised me, looking at his record, he hasn't had many goes at sort of a long distance, a real proper long distance, which I think he'll stay any trip you enter. He doesn't exert himself for the first 2 miles, so it's irrelevant. He only gets going at the end. I don't know entirely about the track, but I think it's almost irrelevant. I think he takes a dislike to most tracks. I think he's now the lowest mark he's ever been. I know he's top weight, but he's dropped back to his lowest mark ever. The real test of stamina, I think, will suit him, and he is a class act against these runners. I found myself, it was a toss-up for me when I had to write an article, and I was umming and ahhing what way to go, and I just couldn't get myself to put Tidal Bay down as a tip. But if I had a bet in the race, I would definitely save on him. I do think he's a player in these conditions. I really do.
OK, Dow Jacob is taking the ride, not Ruby Walsh. We showed you that in the graphic, didn't we?
Yeah, well, he won't be lacking confidence at the moment, Dow Jacob, will he?
No, indeed. Nationals are him, or, marathon chases are him at the moment. Yeah. Any currency, I know you're an Any Currency fan. I thought he showed up for a long way quite well in the Scottish National. He
did. I've been slightly frustrated with him, but he's got a couple of things in favour. I think I'm now coming to the conclusion he likes going right-handed. A lot of his good form over jumps is at Ascot. He certainly stays very well. I'm not sure he'll love this ground. I don't think he wants it really soft. I think he likes, ground just maybe on either side of grid, probably on the soft side of grid ideally. And again, he doesn't always jump brilliantly in terms of quickness. So I know he's run well here before, but I'm not sure in a big field that Sandown will ideally suit him. I don't know. I just think he's not right at his best, and I just got a few little negatives about him.
OK. Let's move on to Uzbek, and this is his run at Newbury in March, and he was never going in the early stages of this. This was a feat of determination by, I think it was Noel Fahily, wasn't it, to get him into second place, because at one point it looked like he wouldn't even finish.
Yeah, I never ever thought he'd be an out-and-out stayer. When in his early days with Alan King and that, I never thought he was going to be an out-and-out stayer. On this evidence, you can see that he might be 3¼ miles, and for most of the race he looked like being beaten 25 lengths, didn't he? And then he got going late. I'm still not entirely sure, and certainly I think if he runs like this, it's not as easy a track to make that sort of ground where the fence is coming up down the far side. So, again, is he a real soft ground horse? 3 mile 5 soft ground? I don't know.
I don't know whether he'll like the ground at all, and isn't he just flattered there?
Well, he's one of them. He's got going late. I think there's horses with more solid staying chasers. More horses we know will definitely like it. I think I've got doubts about him.
OK, I certainly have. Let's have a look at Doris Hill. He's got Sandown form to bring to the table. This was a victory last time out. He's been an unfortunate horse in his time, hasn't he? Yeah. Falling or in seating at times when he looks like he was ready to run a very big race.
Was it Kempton was it Boxing Day or something like that? I'm pretty sure. Anyway, you're right, more than once he certainly has. Again, I'm not sure conditions are absolutely ideal. I suspect this has been the target ever since this race, but I would imagine they were expecting more traditional, just my guess, more traditional conditions. Yeah. It's not that he doesn't handle some cut, but I think you saw here is absolutely ideal conditions, personally.
OK, so that's Dovis Hill. And then we have one more horse left to examine, and 2 horses that we've discussed already are running in behind it in this clip that we're going to show you. It's Deep Purple, winning here at Sandown over the course and distance, winning the London Marathon, in which Any Currency is 3rd and Major Malarkey 5th.
Yeah, again, he's always surprised. I never thought he'd be an out-and-out stayer, but on this evidence he is. His 2 runs since have not been good. One was in the race, political big mistake there, the Racing Plus chase as it now is at Kempton, and the other one was in the National. So you can argue he's had stiff arse, but he hasn't shown much. He never went a yard at Kempton, and you're backing on him bouncing right back to his best again on more extreme conditions than I think will be ideal. And I'm still not entirely convinced. It was a small field this day. I know he's won over 3 mile 5, but there's an awful lot of horses. I don't think there was an out-and-out test for the trip. So I don't know. I'm more negative than positive.
Okay, and he was pulled up in the National last time we saw him. So, key horse that we haven't talked about there is Roaca Defarge for Philip Hobbs and Richard Johnson.
Again, in form, won last time out, stays very well, yard in very good form, can see why he's a single figure price.
Yes. So, what are you tempted by? It's clearly West End Rocker at 7s, isn't it?
West End Rocker. I like West End Rocker and Tidal Bay. I'll be absolutely honest. It was a complete toss-up. West End Rocker, I think, he just strikes me as a slightly safer call than Tidal Bay. Tidal Bay either take to it or he won't. But they're the two that I like. I think the conditions are absolutely ideal for West End Rocker, and I do think Tidal Bay is worth a couple of goes in real extreme staying tests, which you'll get tomorrow. He might disagree, but I think he's still got the class element.